Is this thing on? Testing, hello. How's everybody feeling today? Feeling good? I'm supposed to warm up the crowd. You guys are not doing that well for me. My name is Matthew Crane. I'm Associate Professor in Media and Communication here. I'm really excited to see this packed room to engage with our 5 distinguished alumni that we brought into campus today and tomorrow. The only conclusion I can draw is that we need a bigger studio in Williams Hall because we are at packed capacity. So in a moment, I'll let our department chair, Dr. Bruce Druschel, introduce the panel. And before that, I just have a quick round of thank yous I need to do to folks who helped plan this and make this event and the events for tomorrow possible. So thank you very much to our Communication and Outreach Committee here in Media Journalism and Film, Sasha Bellman, John Rudder, Jennifer Patrick Gaines, Leiping Yu, and Kathy German. Thanks also to Susan Coffin, Brooke Adams, Dan Banky, and Matt Crum for helping set up the studio space and do all kinds of things behind the scene. Thanks to Adam Rottinghouse and the PR Visions team who did a lot of great publicity for us. So this is really a team effort here at MJF, and we're very excited that you're here. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Bruce.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. And again, a warm welcome to you all. Thank you for coming out. This is an event that was a long time in the making. We've been doing these now for several years, but we really should have started years and years ago because we have an impressive array of alums in our programs, and you deserve to meet them. We're always thrilled to welcome them back. We thank them very much for taking time out of what are very, very busy schedules to make time to come back and spend a couple days with you. So let me begin by introducing our panel, and I'll start on my far left. That's geographically, not politically necessarily. Jamie Ramsey, who is a 99 graduate of the Mass Communication Program, as it was then called. He's Director of Media Relations and Digital Content for the Cincinnati Reds. In his 25th season with the Reds organization, Jamie is author and host of the Reds blog and podcast Better Off Red. I love that. And he has worked 5 National League Championship series. So will you welcome Jamie Ramsey, please? To his right and to your left is Candace Kuo. She is a senior producer at NBC News, where she manages business and technology content for all the video and streaming platforms. Before that, she earned an Emmy for her work as producer for CBS This Morning, and an Emmy and Edward R. Murrow Award for her work as producer for the primetime special 39 Days. Beside her is John Gambrell, a 2004 journalism major, journalism graduate. He's news director for the Gulf and Iran for the Associated Press. He's been a foreign correspondent for over a decade, covering the rise of the Boko Haram in Nigeria, the war in Afghanistan, the rise and fall of the Islamic State group, and most recently, Russia's war on Ukraine. So please welcome. Next to him is Megan Maloney, a 91 graduate of the Mass Communication Program. She's Vice President for Marketing and Communications at Transylvania University. She previously worked in the federal government for more than 22 years. Megan worked as a radio and television reporter, producer, and director, receiving a regional Emmy Award and multiple nominations, as well as several Ohio Associated Press Awards. And I might add that she was one of the people who was very helpful to us in setting up the Inside Washington program a number of years ago. Please welcome Megan. And to my immediate left, your right of him, is Barry Kirshner, a 92 graduate in media management in mass communication, back when we had sequences. He is director of distribution, which means affiliate sales, for Showtime Networks. His passion for the industry started at his high school job working at a movie theater.
Right.
Yeah. We'll talk about the chains later. And continued with his time at Disney World during college. Barry has over 20 years in the media and entertainment industry. Please welcome Barry Kirshner. Okay, we're going to eventually open it up for questions from you folks. So be thinking of some things that you would like to ask our panel. This is a wonderful opportunity for you to pick the brains of people who were where you were not so very, very long ago, and can maybe help give you some good hand-up advice on how you get your career started. But I wonder if maybe we could begin by having each of you give us a quick summary of your life from the time you left Miami to the present day. And I know that's such a short time, but just give us the highlights. And Jamie, if you'd like to begin, we'll
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm Jamie Ramsey. I started with the Cincinnati Reds while I was going to school here at Miami. I was a commuter student living in Hamilton, Ohio, which is, many of you know, just south of here. So I got an opportunity to work on the Reds ground crew when I was 20 years old, taking classes here at Miami, as I said. And after I graduated in the summer of 1999, I got hired in the Reds front office, and this is 26 years later, 27, something like that. I'm still there, and it's been a great career and very fun working for my hometown baseball team.
Hi, everybody. So I graduated in 2004. Prior to that, I did a lot of runner positions, so the ones where you run scripts to anchors or you go get them lunch, and I did a lot of that during school. One of my first jobs, I have to give a shout out to Dr. Vogel, who I know is out there, who helped me get this job at the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics, and it kind of paved the way for getting a bunch of experiences while I was here at Miami within live sports coverage. But then also I did an internship with NBC Nightly News when it was Tom Brokaw at the time in 2003. And that paved the way for my news career. So I spent 13 years at the Today Show, and I did a bit of everything. Kind of grew up there, starting as a PA, and then became a producer, going to live breaking news, to tape interviews and pieces, to some supervisory roles. I moved over to CBS in 2017 and worked with CBS This Morning, now CBS Mornings, and led the 8 o'clock hour of the show, basically dictating kind of what the stories were that were going to be covered during the day. And then now I'm back at NBC, which I didn't think I was going to be. But I am now looking at, I cover the business technology and innovation unit for all the platforms I first mentioned.
So I'm a 2004 graduate, like Candace, and I did a series of internships while I was at Miami. I was lucky enough to work at the Oxford Press, the Hamilton Journal News, the Cincinnati Enquirer, as well as the Tico Times in San Jose, Costa Rica before I graduated. After graduation, I worked at a newspaper in Washington State called the Bellingham Herald for several years. And then I joined the Associated Press in their Little Rock, Arkansas bureau. I worked in Arkansas for several years, covering a lot of different events. After that, I went abroad for the AP, first in Lagos, Nigeria, where I worked as a chief correspondent for about 4 years. While I was there, I worked in South Africa, also worked in Afghanistan as well. After that, I went to the editing desk that we had in Cairo right after the 2013 overthrow of the elected government of Mohamed Morsi. I stayed there for 2 years and then went on to Dubai, where I worked as a correspondent, and then later became the news director for the Gulf Cooperation Council states, which include the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and others. And I also oversee our office in Tehran, Iran.
They got down to the older end of the table now, but
Wait a minute.
I'm pretty sure you arrived when I was here, so yes.
Yeah,
I graduated in 1991 from this program when it was the mass communication program. I had a double emphasis in broadcast journalism and television production, a minor in theater performance, and I sort of just jumped right into what I had studied. I started working in television production and public television in Lexington, Kentucky at the Kentucky Educational Television Network, while also working as a reporter at a local radio station and later an NBC affiliate in Lexington. After about 4 years, I packed up everything I had that fit into my car and drove to DC and had enough money to be there for 6 months and ended up getting a job, my first of a 23-year career in federal government. Was at the Department of Transportation for a little bit before I joined one of the presidential campaigns in 1996 and worked as a press advance desk, which helped get the media corps where they needed to be when they were covering the presidential campaign. From there, went to the inauguration, which was just sort of a temporary jobs program for all of us who'd been on the campaign. And in early 1997 was hired into the White House press office to run President Clinton's weekly radio address. By the time I left, 4 years later, I was the director of radio and television production there at the White House, working regularly with the radio and television correspondents and production folks that were in the White House press corps. After that 4 years in the White House, I moved over to the United States Secret Service, where I stayed for 13 years working in their public affairs office, helping agents who were put in the position of being spokespeople for the agency have some understanding and knowledge of actual media public affairs work, because they weren't necessarily trained in that. So it was my role to kind of help get them to the point that they could do that job. I was with the service until 2013 when I joined the Department of Veterans Affairs for my final job in government. I had the opportunity to help stand up a digital media engagement operation. So it was really the department's first really big concerted push into the digital sphere. So websites, social media, blogs, video content that's being posted to YouTube, and those sorts of things were what I was tasked with helping to coordinate. I stayed with VA even through a transition back to my hometown in Lexington, Kentucky, through 2018 when I had the opportunity to take a position at Transylvania University, which is the 16th oldest university in the nation, founded in 1780, so even older than Miami. One of the fun facts that I did discover is the fact that it was faculty and administrators from Transylvania who came to Oxford and helped found Miami. So that was a nice little tie-in for me. But I have been there ever since and continue to work now in marketing and communications, where our job is not only to kind of, again, create the content that we're sharing on all of our platforms, but also then do the marketing messaging on behalf of the university that's being done to all the prospective students, alumni, and various audiences.
I was a 91 graduate as well, but in marketing. And then there was a recession and I couldn't find a job. So I came back and I got my media management degree. So I graduated in 92 and there was still a recession. So I still couldn't get a job. So I spent the next 2+ years actually freelancing. I worked on film, I worked on concerts, I worked on some TV. And one of my freelance clients was an ad agency and they wanted me to come on full time. And at that point, they had just purchased one of the very first computer-based editing systems, the Avid. And I said, you teach me how to use that, and I will come on full-time. So I became their full-time Avid editor. Did that for a couple years until I realized I hate sitting around doing corporate editing, and transferred to a producer role. And then ultimately, one of the principals there did an offshoot, used to work in professional sales at Procter & Gamble, and he was in charge of diversity, selling skills, and team building, created his own organization, of which I became the number 2 employee, Did that for about 3 years before I said I really want to get back into the entertainment field, and an opportunity at Showtime opened up as a trainer there. And I said, okay, I'm going to give it 5 years because I've never given a job 5 years, and 24 years later, I'm still here. So my job is completely different than when I started. Thankfully, the industry has changed. My job has changed. So now I'm more working with cable operators, trying to get them to sell Showtime, as well as affiliate partnerships and partnership marketing, working with Best Buy, working with places like Capital One Shopping, trying to get them to promote and sell our app. So, and as things change, our app is going away. So at some point this year, as part of, it's going to be part of Paramount Plus. So constantly looking at how do I reinvent myself, but luckily I've been able to do that at the same job. So.
Okay, very good. And I'm just going to kind of throw this question out. It doesn't necessarily have to. You don't necessarily have to answer it if you don't want to, but I'm hoping you will. I think higher education is all about serendipity. Sometimes it's the things you don't expect that are most helpful to you. And I'm wondering if any of you had that experience, had maybe a class that you took, or a relationship that you entered into, or something like that that was unexpectedly helpful to you in your career. So something that you didn't really think was going to be that big of a deal, and it turned out to be a big deal for you later on.
I can start with that.
Sure.
That was easy. As a marketing major, I'd come in with some AP credits, but they wouldn't let me take my business classes. So I looked around and I said, what else can I take? I'm like, oh, there's this intro to mass communications class. Maybe I'll take that class. And Bob Vogel was the teacher of that, a huge lecture hall. And I think he took an interest in me because he's like, you're a marketing student. What are you doing in this class? So what's great is after every test, I'd go up to Bob and he said, what'd you think? I said, well, number 7, we never really covered. And number 13 was ambiguous. And he ended up throwing those out. So it was really good. But it was that relationship that I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to take 102. And thankfully I did, because it just worked out that all of my media management classes, electives, were business classes. So I just had to take all the core that I didn't take when I decided to come back. And so I was able to finish my media management degree in just 1 year. And, even through those times at marketing, I'd stop by and Bob would give me advice and kind of lead me over to join this side as well.
The dark side.
The dark side. I don't have the Star Wars class tomorrow.
No. I think I can continue to shower the adoration onto Bob Vogel, because I did also take that same class. And it was funny, earlier today I was in Laws 100 and I realized that was where the class was, and I was sitting in kind of the middle. And he had mentioned a list of internships, runner positions, various things that maybe if there was interest you could apply for. And I was just a freshman getting started. And the last one that he mentioned was through this other program and through Asbury College. And it was like, we don't know much about it. You can go to Salt Lake and go to the Olympics. And it's like, okay. And I sat there and I thought, yeah, that's not going to happen. It's like my parents are never going to let me go anywhere outside the state of Ohio. But then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to try. Let's see. I think I've shared the story a few times where it's like, I'm going to see how far I go before people say no. It's like, you can't do this. And I managed to get there. And so that was kind of the thing that started it all.
For me, I was very lucky. I had professors who really helped my career out, the late Cheryl Heckler, as well as Patty Newberry, who's gone back to the Cincinnati Enquirer to write. Both of them were really encouraging, and they pushed me, John Lowry as well, pushed me into internships early. And those internships really are what helped me open the door. Miami provided sort of the foundation of my journalism career, but really that practical experience that I got through internships really made the difference and really helped me get a job after I completed my degree.
I'll echo I will echo what the last couple of folks said, which is I had professors and mentors throughout the department who didn't say no when I said I want to do something that people haven't done before. I showed up as a freshman at WMUB, which was the radio station, NPR radio station here. And Bob Long, who's also in the audience back with Bob Vogel today, said, we generally don't have freshmen work at the radio station. And I didn't take no for the answer. And so I volunteered to come in on that morning edition shift that started at 4 a.m. It's not an easy thing to do as a college student, but I stuck with it. And for 4 years, alternated as an anchor on morning. It first, helped in the newsroom, but by the senior year was anchoring on morning edition and afternoon edition on the NPR station. It was that experience that got me the job that I was able to have at the White House, because they looked at my resume and said, "Oh, you've done radio work. You know how to deal with radio stations." And it was because of what I'd had here. Bob Vogel was my advisor. And again, I was applying for internship programs in New York that typically, at that time, juniors didn't do internships. They were reserved for seniors. And I went ahead and did it anyway. And so I just, they allowed me to be in the position to make those decisions and make those opportunities happen, and helped me sort of navigate that path, which really gave me the experience I needed when I walked out the door. And I think you hear that across the panel here, is having the experience when you walk out the door to say, yes, I've been in college, but I've also done the work. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about the Mass Comm program. And I think now the media journalism and film program is that people are walking out the door with practical experience when they can find it. And I would encourage anybody who's here to take that opportunity to have that, because that is the thing that will set you apart. That and the basic liberal arts education that you're going to get at Miami in having such a wide variety of classes.
I think my most memorable class that I took, it was a basic media writing class, and it was taught by a radio disc jockey, a morning disc jockey named Rick Tile, but his real name was Rick Sengari. And I went into the class thinking, like, what in the world is a morning disc jockey going to teach me that I'm going to be able to use? Ended up being my most favorite class that I've taken, and the one that still sticks with me to this day, because I learned how to write a press release. I learned how to excel in areas that I didn't think I had much talent in, and it was because of Rick. And it was because of that class, and I had it here in Williams, and I'm so grateful for him and for that. And it was, again, just a basic media writing class, but it really kind of made me blossom into the writer and the person that I am today.
One of the things that I've heard, kind of a commonality in the stories here, is the importance of advisors. And I know that I think there's a tendency now with a lot of things being online, being virtual, and of course we all went through COVID, several years ago when we had to be online. But my feeling is that maybe we don't have those close relationships with students that we used to have. That they tend to be all about advising and not about, this is what I want to do. Can you make some recommendations? Could you talk a little bit about the value of advising here, if you haven't already? And by the way, we had a word from the control room to kind of speak up if you can, because these microphones are not very directional, and they're meaning to pick up everything up here.
Go ahead, Barry.
I didn't have anything else to add. I said everything. No, I mean, there was, I mentioned Bob, Howard Kleinman, I as well. And for me, it was actually, I spoke to one of my classes that I went to. It was actually a guy named Linus Ryland, who was the registrar. And most people are like, why would that guy? And he was excited that somebody actually came to see him all the time. But when I took my semester off to go to Disney, he helped navigate my summer school classes and then classes when I came back. And then when I decided I'm coming back for my media management degree, he worked with me to make sure that I could get it done in a year. So, as I said, he was another person that was outside of this group, but had a huge influence on me.
I would agree with Howard was also, for me.
Yeah.
Howard was very instrumental in making sure that I stayed the course. As probably like many of you, I was the first person in my family to pursue an undergrad degree. So I was a little bit over my skis, and I could lean on Howard to make sure I, like I said, stayed the course and get to where I am.
Yeah, I would, double down on that as well. Howard helped me when I would toss out a crazy idea, like I want to work at a national news division and see what that looks like. And he didn't say, okay, get out of my office. He said, okay, I know a couple people. Where do you want to go? And to be able to have somebody be open to that and not think you're nuts, and to do whatever that he could to get me to that point. I mean, without that, I wouldn't be at NBC, period.
I have plenty of questions for our panel here, but I can talk to them, later. What I'm interested in is questions that you have for them, and so if you would come up and talk into the microphone so that we record what you say. Not that we're trying to get you in trouble or anything, but so that it gets recorded. And we'll just kind of open it up to anybody who has any questions for our panel. Yeah, the microphone is right here in front. And
I'm a senior StratCom major student. I'm Dorrit Wu. I'm an international student from China, mainland China, led by the Communism Party. I've just been here in the States for 2 years, so I have a question for Candace. Do you think NBC News would like to have employees like me? I have like a kind of intercultural perspective of politics, media, sports, and so on. So
Absolutely. And oh, yes, absolutely. To your question of being a graduating senior that's from mainland China and whether or not there's interest, there absolutely is. I think that there are so many different parts of NBC News now, which is amazing to me, even from when I was previously there. There's, the traditional nightly news, Today Show, and even now MSNBC is seen as traditional. And then you got NBC News Now and NBCnews.com on digital. And so you have all these different pathways, and they're all looking for unique voices. Yeah. And that's what you provide, a perspective that no one else sees. And so you have to use it as your asset. That's the voice that you have. For all of us that I only know the world that I see. So I know Westchester, Ohio, because that's where I grew up. I know, New York and the New York-centric things. But what we're constantly telling ourselves with every bit of coverage is, what do the people in Des Moines care about this story? Why do they care? Why do the people in Montana care about this story? Why do the people in China care about this story? You provide that perspective. And so we absolutely are looking for that.
Thank you. I have a further question. So if you don't mind, I can talk to you later.
Of course. Of course.
who else?
You've got 5 of us up here. Did I count right today? Counting is hard. That's why I'm a word person. I know there are plenty of questions out there. Some of you have had the opportunity to listen to a couple of us today. If there's anything you think that was helpful, there we go.
I'm a senior. I'm a psychology major and also a double minor right now in film studies and Japanese language. My question is for Mr. Barry Kirshner. Well, before I get to my question, I do want some clarification. So you work in distribution at Showtime. So does that include the licensing of program?
No, that's a whole nother group that handles licensing. So with distribution, for us, it's a lot of times we call it affiliate sales as well. So affiliates for us would be cable operators. So whether it's Spectrum, whether it's DirecTV, whether it's AT&T, it's working with those folks to then promote Showtime and sell Showtime to their customers.
Right. So my question then is, how do you feel about the whole Paramount Plus and Showtime merger that is eventually happening?
I think from a selfish standpoint, it hurts me because as any merger happens, there's going to be people that you know and you like that are no longer there. From a business standpoint, you look at it, step back and look at it from a business standpoint. It makes sense. There's a Showtime app. There's a Paramount Plus app. There's no reason to have both apps. There's two different groups trying to manage two different apps, put them together. Paramount Plus with Showtime, you're going to end up with better people working together to build a better app. So from that standpoint, I think it's the right move for us.
And do you think other companies will also take notice with the way that Paramount Plus and Showtime merge with how it's handled? As HBO Max or Warner Bros. Discovery is trying to merge Discovery Plus with HBO Max.
Mm-hmm.
Disney's trying to figure out what to do with Hulu.
Right. Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I think I told one of the classes, if you don't like change, this is not the industry for you. But use the skills that you learn here and always put your hand up, because you'll always keep learning. Because I told one of the classes, I even said, how many of you know PowerPoint? Now let's see. How many people know PowerPoint? How many people know Excel? How many people know Photoshop? No, that's more than. So there was a time when I started at Showtime where I had someone else who could create, if I needed a one sheet that said, here's how to sell Showtime for my cable operator employees. I could send it to them and they would get it. They'd get title clearance. They would get key art. They would write it up. They would then send it to legal. They would then send me the finished product. Those people are gone. So that's me. That's on me. So I had to learn all of those things in order to be able to be effective and keep moving the business forward. So I encourage you all, those are some basic skills that if they're not classes for you here, I know there's some LinkedIn learnings of all those. I still do LinkedIn learnings for PowerPoint, Excel. I'm always looking for new tricks, new ways to improve my skills. So college isn't the end of your learning. Keep it going. So
Thank you.
thanks.
Hi, so I'm Ryan Singh and I'm studying business analytics. I have nothing to do with the journalism major or minor. So John, my question is for you. So you work for AP and you work on the front line and you do a lot of journalism on the front line. So, the war correspondents and correspondents who work in the front line often risk their lives. Have you ever put yourself in a situation where your life is at risk and for a story or a photograph?
Well, my family is here, so I have to be very careful on how I answer that question because I don't want to make anybody worried. What I will say is that I've been very lucky in my career to work for the AP in places that are, I guess, conflict areas, you could say. That's included Nigeria, where you're dealing with communal violence, religious violence, Afghanistan, where it was open warfare between an insurgent group and the U.S.-led force there that was trying to prop up a U.S. or Western-backed government, as well as other places and other coverage that has been dicey. Like I was in Ukraine several times over the last year as well to aid our coverage there. Journalism in these areas is incredibly important, but I don't want to gloss over the fact that it's incredibly dangerous. And even places that you wouldn't necessarily think are dangerous are becoming more dangerous for journalists. For instance, we are taking some of the same security precautions that we take in war zone areas to cover the coming indictment of Donald Trump in New York. We're having to consider our staff safety, our cameraman safety, our video journalists, our photojournalists, the same way. and it's not to say and not to equate them, because it's different environments and you face different risks. But as something that I was saying to students today, everyone talks about freedom of speech and free expression, but expression isn't free. Journalism isn't free. It's a dangerous profession right now. We've had a colleague at the Wall Street Journal get arrested just in the last days, only because he was being a journalist in Russia as it continues to wage this war in Ukraine. So it's very important work, but everyone should be have their eyes open about what the risks are. And it's not that anyone's going out to take risks for risk's sake, but it's going out to take risks to try to inform the world, to help people better understand these conflicts that are raging around them.
And this is such a different perspective, where you say you've been lucky to go in, conflict heavy areas, such a different perspective. We thank you for your service. Thank you for getting those photographs to the general public.
Thank you.
I'm a freshman StratCom major, and my question is for everyone, and it's, how do you accept or work through rejection?
Yeah. When I was a Miami student, the AP actually came and did interviews, and also I did the AP writing test, which was very intense, and I flunked it. I absolutely bombed it. And at the time I was heartbroken, because I thought that I would never actually get to be a foreign correspondent, that I'd never have the opportunity to do it. But I worked in my internships at the Inquirer and elsewhere with really great people, and I was able to get a job at a small newspaper after I graduated. And one thing I would say is that, you make the opportunity. You don't really get granted opportunities. You kind of make the opportunities. So when a door cracks open, you need to shove your foot in the door and then push your way inside and just keep trying. And rejection is a part of life, and it seasons you to make you ready for when that opportunity does come. And when you do see it, you just have to charge right through it and take it.
Yeah, I think that's something I learn on a daily basis, even today, where it doesn't matter how long you've been in this business, rejection and failure, we're all fallible. And I think being okay with that and knowing that you're not going to be able to do things that are 100% perfect every single time is important, and it's difficult to do. But usually in those times when I've encountered them, I've always kind of told myself, what did you learn from this? Or if this wasn't the assignment that you wanted to do, what are you going to gain out of it that is going to change your perspective? I mean, when I was doing a runner position for the Republican National Convention, I think in 2004 in New York, I got assigned the worst job. It wasn't at Madison Square Garden. It was at 30 Rock, but it was to take the elevator up and down to pick up tapes from somebody that had run them over to from Madison Square Garden and bring them over to get them ingested. It was the worst job. And I was like, what did they have against me? Why did they put me in this position? And then I was like, well, what are you going to do with this? Everybody's at Madison Square Garden in the chaos of what's going on in there, but you're actually here with the hiring managers. So right. I set up meetings, and that's how actually I got my job at NBC, because everybody else was at Madison Square Garden. So take the opportunities, take the failures or the rejections or the things that you think are going to be the negatives, and figure out how you're going to make it advantageous for you.
I was working a 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. shift at One Police Plaza for that convention. I don't know if that was better or worse than running tapes at 30 Rockefeller Center.
I was indoors.
We were in the undisclosed location watching computer screens for 2 weeks. So Candace also mentioned being at the Olympics, and I spent a month with the Secret Service at the Olympics in 2002. So we've actually been in the same events probably multiple times in our career, not realizing, the Miami connection. If we sat down, we'd be like, yeah, we did that one. working for the federal government, you apply for probably 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 jobs before you even get an interview on one. It's a very unique environment to try to get into. And so you just sort of have to develop that that response of, okay, well, if that's not the one, then that means there's something else out there for me. And eventually that ends up being the case. I know as I was looking to leave the federal government over a series of years, I had various opportunities to interview in corporate environment, at other educational institutions, and finally this position at Transy came along, and it's a little corny to say that everything happens for a reason, but there's a little bit of me that believes that, because the position that you are the best fit for will come along when it's the right time for that to happen.
I am all in on the everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
I really believe that, and rejection is just an exercise in humility. And as long as you believe in yourself, and as long as you know that you are a valuable asset, it'll play itself out. But never, ever lose sight of that fact that somebody will be lucky to have you, not the other way around.
Yeah, I can think when I graduated with my marketing degree, everything I wanted to do was write copy for advertising. That's what I wanted to do. I interviewed, talked to somebody. It was exam week, and he offered me the job. Said my offer letter was going to be in the mail next week. 2 days later, I got a call from a real estate firm in Lexington. They were just starting their marketing department. They wanted me to come and talk to them about running them because they heard from one of my professors. Nope, got a job, thanks. Day after that, I got a call from the Inquirer, wanting me to intern in their department that could have led to a permanent job. Nope, no thanks, got a job. Well, guess what? That job never came through. He ended up not following up. And I had the opportunity months later to talk. My uncle knew another ad agency person, and he sat down with me and just had just a general talk with me. And he said, I know that person, and you could have went and worked for that person for 5 years. And after 5 years, I could have had a choice of you or somebody right out of college, and I would have picked the person right out of college because he would have ruined you. So remember, sometimes it's not that you're not good for that job. Sometimes that job's not good for you. Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jill Reimer. I'm a media and communication major and film studies minor. I'm a junior, and so I'm planning for senior year next year. And I think something I was wondering from anybody was there any opportunities class-wise or anything that you wish you had taken advantage of while you were here and while you had the time as a student?
I think I wish I would have done more marketing. I think that would have helped me where I am now. I think it would have enabled me to be more of a Swiss Army knife, so to speak. So yeah, I wish I would have. I think the marketing end. I think I would have done it differently, where I've taken more marketing classes.
I wish I just had more time. I was a political science minor. I wish I had majored in that. I wish I had been able to do marketing as well and get some form of business experience, because all of that is intertwined in media and history too. I think we were talking about everything has a precedent, and if you don't know it, and the story comes up like Silicon Valley Bank, and all of a sudden you're doing these deep dives, you can live out the experiences. But I do think also having that knowledge base coming out of here, I think would have been helpful. But at the end of the day, I do love that the journalism program does require two majors, and pick the thing that you're passionate about, or pick the thing that you're curious about, because at the end of the day you can use that afterwards when you're getting into the field that you're interested in, and being able to say, I'm coming at this from a level of expertise.
One thing that I would say in my journalism career, when I left here, I didn't have any experience taking a photograph or shooting video or anything like that. And in my current role, I have to work with videographers, I have to work with photographers all the time. And I wish that I would have had the foresight to learn that stuff while I was here and while I had the opportunity. And I think that also that sort of artistic ability is really helpful, and it helps you see news events and things differently because you're looking at it with the eye of a photographer or an artist as well as a writer or anything else, and it broadens you out. So that's something that I wish I would have done.
I'll echo, because of where I've landed, I'll echo the marketing piece. Though if you had told me when I was here as a student that I needed marketing and I needed something in the business school, I would have just looked at you and said, no, absolutely not. I refuse to do that. I did, though, participate in the Laws Hall project, which at the time put business students and marketing students and communication students together in an advertising agency environment. And so at least I had that. But I also felt that, I don't know how I could have done anything more because I was doing what I felt at that point were all the things. But being, a broadcast at that point in time, broadcast journalism also required, our electives courses had a lot of the political science courses in them. And so, it was a pretty well-rounded education. Language may have been something I should have followed up on, my language courses, but again, that was one of those where I got in and was like, hey, I tested to this level. I can take one course and be done with my requirements, and I didn't do it again. So given the sort of international nature of everything we do today, additional language courses might have been helpful.
Now, I was thinking nothing, but now I think I probably should have taken Spanish instead of Latin. I think that's my.
I took French, and there aren't many French baseball players. So.
But along with that, I would probably say, and this is, I think, is true. If you're not finding volunteer opportunities or club activities or something that is getting you skills or getting you to where you want to be, that I think is going to be the best thing for you. I can tell you without a doubt. Everything that I have, whether it's my wife or my job, is because of me volunteering. So, when I had nothing going on at school after I graduated, the reason I got to work on film and TV is because 2 years prior, there was a organization started in Cincinnati called the Greater Cincinnati Film Commission. And I started, it was in this woman's house, and they worked to bring films into Cincinnati. So I started volunteering, just office work, but she got to know me so that when I graduated and Lost in Yonkers came in town and they needed an office PA, guess who got the job? Because I was the first one in the door. So, sometimes I say it's not attitude or aptitude, it's latitude and longitude. It's being in the right place at the right time. But as John said, sometimes you have to be the one to kick the door open. You're not going to wait. Talking about, going back to Bruce's question about mentoring of your professors, they're not going to come to you. There's so many of you. You need to make the effort to come to them, and they are more than willing to help you out.
Awesome. Thank you. That was very helpful.
Okay, we have anybody else on the runway? Film came up here a couple times, and I know Christine. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you coming. Go ahead.
What was your greatest failure in media, and how did you recover and bounce back from it?
I was on Deadspin once for sending a tweet to an angry fan, and my language was not great. And I thought for sure that I was going to be dismissed from my job. But I think because of where that direct message came from, it was in the best interest of my employer. I guess I was speaking passionately and defending my employer and the people that followed the Reds team. That's kind of what saved me. But it was very scary for me, and definitely an exercise in humility and a learning moment for me.
It was my second day of work, and I was supposed to be in the control room that morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. and I had just moved to New York 48 hours ago, and I was staying with a friend, and I woke up and the sun was shining, and I knew that was not a good thing. And I thought for sure that was it. And so I was in Chinatown and I had to make my way up to 30 Rock. I hop in a cab and I'm calling the control room right when the show is starting. So don't ever do that. And I'm frantic going, I'm sorry, I'm on my way. And they're like, who are you? And they hang up on me. And I'm just like, this is just bad over bad. And it was the day of a Bon Jovi concert, so now I'll never look at Bon Jovi the same way again, by the way. But I knock on the security door and I don't have a badge. I was going to get there so early it wasn't going to matter at the time when security wasn't a huge problem. And they went downstairs and I was like, somebody's going to come back up and be like, it's been nice knowing you. Go back to Cincinnati. You're done. You're done. But they let me in the door. And after that, I set 3 alarms and I didn't sleep for a year. But I also, worked as hard as I could to prove that I wasn't that person that was going to do something like that. But hopefully that does show in your greatest failure, when people don't know who you are, you can still survive. There's still a way out of that.
I would say that, like at the AP, we write so much every day, right? So occasionally there's going to be a mistake. And I don't have one that really sticks out in my mind, but I guess the cumulative experience of it is just being humble enough to recognize when you're wrong and making a good faith effort to make it right. And I think that's the most important thing you can do, either in journalism or like your personal life, is just to have that acknowledgement and then try to do the right thing afterwards.
I'll echo what John said, is that, in the course of writing social posts and releases and all of the various things, there's either going to be a factual error, there's going to be words that are wrong, there's going to be tweets that go out that on one account that should have gone out on another account. And, that when you have the visibility of the Associated Press or some of these larger accounts, you look at it and it's just it's that moment of the heart going, oh no, before you have the opportunity to correct it. Corrections are very difficult because you have to admit that you made a mistake, but don't look at them as, failure as much as, well, okay, I'm human and we need a correction and here we go. It's a lot easier with blogs though, because, you can just go change it and people don't necessarily notice a lot of those things. But yeah, just not necessarily a specific instance, but just plenty of instances where something went out and it then has to be edited or corrected.
And I don't know why it came to mind, but the first thing that came to mind was I took the day off. So I was working on a film. I was working on Milk Money, and I had a wedding to go to. And if you ever worked on a film, you're working 14-hour days, 6 days a week. So I had to get this approved long ahead. One of my many jobs on that film was the film runner. So if they were shooting nights, I was going to set the first thing in the morning at 5 a.m. to tell them, cut film. I collected whatever was shot over the night. I had to take it to the airport, have it shipped off to be developed. At the end of the day, go back and pick up the previous days so that they can watch what they call dailies and see what they shot. So it's very important because that is the entire day's worth. And the day that I took off, someone else ran the film and they lost it. The airlines lost the film. So if you think about the number of people that were involved and having to redo an entire day's shoot. Thankfully, when I got back, I was able to track down, but it was one of those where they said, you're never taking another day off.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I think we're starting to get a little short on time, and one question that I wanted to make sure that we got to here was has to do with I guess the dinosaur syndrome, where and I think somebody, and I forget who it was, and please pardon me, but talked about the idea of keeping current. And so I'm wondering if each of you would maybe just talk a little bit about how you keep current in your field. So, you left Miami however many years ago. but that wasn't the end of your education, because if it were, you'd be frankly unemployable, right? So talk to me a little bit about it. Talk to the group a little bit about keeping updated.
Well, I could say from Showtime's perspective, when I started in '99, there were 2 channels of Showtime, Showtime and Showtime 2. And then the big technological advancement was digital cable. So now you can fit more channels into that same bandwidth. So now we've got 16 channels of Showtime with Showtime Family Zone and Showtime. So there's all these different things. Now you're learning about things like QAM. And I'm like, what the heck is QAM? And all these things that I never thought I would have to know. I still don't really think I need to know what QAM is, but to know those things. And then you move into, now we're selling telcos. AT&T is now selling cable, where they weren't before. They were just the phone company, but now they're competing because the cable companies are now selling phone. Then you move into streaming and all those things. So thankfully for me, I've got people who are smarter than me who let me glom onto them and ask them a lot of stupid questions until I can know. And I'm one of those people, I don't like not knowing things. So I will constantly ask until I figure it out.
I've mentioned a couple of times today in the classes that I've spoken with that, and I'm going to sound like your parents right now, but when I was at Miami, the internet as we know it did not exist. There was no internet to go to find the answers to all of the things. And if you let that sink in, everything I do for my career now in marketing and communication is based on people being able to find out information about my university on the internet, across digital media, and all of these various platforms. I've had to fundamentally learn from the ground up entire new systems and technologies. I'm not an expert on all of those things. And so the one thing that I've done throughout my career is surround myself with the people who are experts. And right now, that means surrounding myself with college students at my university who can tell me how to do TikTok, right? Because how do I market a university to potential college students if I don't know how to use the technology that potential college students are using? So you can probably tell a difference between the apps that are the posts that our students are creating and the ones that I'm creating, but it's that constant sense of staying on top of what the technology is, but knowing you don't have to do it yourself. Find the people that know how to do it, because the more you can surround yourself with colleagues who have a joint goal of making something good, the easier it's going to be for everybody, regardless of where you are in that structure. The easier it's going to be for your team to accomplish that goal.
When I started at Miami in journalism, my professor, and this is going to date my age, but my professor was very old school and made us write first ad, second ad at the top of our assignment sheets, as if we were typing on typewriters that had carbon copy on the paper. So like real carbon copy, not the email carbon copy. And it's not to make fun or anything, but that was the experience that my professor had. He provided the right foundation, but he was writing for the typewriter age. And me personally, when I got out of school, I thought that I would only ever be writing for newspapers, genuinely. And, in my experience with the AP over the last 20 odd years is that we've changed into being a company that needs to have more photos, needs to have more videos. And like you said, I've been very blessed to be able to have colleagues who don't mind me tagging along and shooting a couple frames on my own camera and then looking over my shoulder and saying, oh, this one works because of the composition. This one doesn't work because of the color and it's too dark. And, looking at my video edits to say, this could be improved, that could be improved. And I think that having take advantage of the colleagues that you have and be willing to try things that you're not necessarily comfortable with and take on that criticism. that's so essential. And, most people are willing to help you out if you're willing to try. So I really strongly encourage you to do that.
I think that, this industry right now is tackling a lot of unknown questions in terms of, particularly if you're interested in going into more of these traditional news divisions where words like broadcast, which is what I oversee, are outdated at this point. And you're talking about video and streaming and digital and social platforms. There's just so many different outlets. And so every day it's changing and it's overwhelming. But I feel like if you can, as much as possible, embrace it and keep that open mind, I know that I can't stay within the broadcast realm of things and feel like my future career isn't going to be impacted. I have to make the investment. What am I going to do? And in the position that I'm in right now, I'm not sitting in this little corner and looking at the digital side and going, I'm just not going to touch that. That's definitely what I saw when I first walked in the door at NBC. The older generation's doing well. It's like, I don't want to learn that. I don't want to learn HD. I'm going to stick with 4x3 and my life will be fine.
Yeah.
And it sort of taught me that it's like, as I go along, the feeling of constantly having to learn the new things and being open to it, having that mentality was only going to help me. Not being resistant to it, but embracing it. How is artificial intelligence going to change what we're doing? How is the medium in which we distribute things, whether it's Twitter, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Snapchat, how does that impact how I'm writing things, and what are the stories that are going to mean different things to different audiences depending upon how you get your news? Being open-minded to that, I think, is what's going to keep you in the mix.
When I started with the Reds, not every game was televised. And now it's every game, every pitch is on logged. We log every pitch. Our baseball operations department can tell you what Matt Reynolds does against left-handers on Tuesday night when it rains. It's very specialized and pretty incredible what we can do with so much data now. I echo what Candace said. You have to embrace this. Especially from my point of view, how we disseminate our information when we make transactions, or if we make a trade, or put out a press release, we can reach so many people now other than just by emailing, or in my time, we used to fax out our press releases. Now we can send them on 100 different platforms, including email and all the social platforms. So use it to your advantage. I mean, when this technology starts to advance, that means you're advancing. That means it should be getting easier for you, because that's what technology is. So like what Candace said, embrace it and get to know it.
We've asked so much of our panel over the last day and a half or so, and going into tomorrow, we have one more thing we would like to ask of you, and that is to please accept our, just as a token of our affection for you and our appreciation for what you do and what you've meant to our program. We have just a little gift we'd like to give you.
All opening them? It's all the same.
Or
No.
I know.
This is going straight to the office. That's beautiful.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you.
So if you're in need of a Miami clock, go out, do wonderful things, come back when we ask you, and we'll be more than happy to put you through your paces for a couple days, and in exchange you'll get the clock. Please join me in thanking our panelists today. I've been asked to remind you of a couple things on your now that we're kind of breaking up. One is that we do have kind of a reception here, so feel free to partake of that. and maybe mix and mingle with some of our distinguished alums. And on your way out, please, Barry has been kind enough to supply us with all sorts of Showtime swag, and more than any of us could ever use. So feel free to take as much of it as you want, and because he's not going to take it back.
I'm not
with
taking
him.
it home.
No, he's not taking it home. So thank you again all so much.